You've been seeing my daughter. I want you to stay away from her.
Doesn't Stephen have something to say about that?
What Stephen does is his own business, except about our child.
Don't worry, Mrs. Hilliard. I'm not interested in children.
He couldn't be in love with you.
Then he's been giving an awfully good imitation. What are you beefing about? You've got everything that matters. The name, the position, the money.
Everything that matters to you.
Oh, cut the dramatics, Mrs. Hilliard.
I was told you were clever. You must be. To keep Stephen from seeing how cheap you are.
Don't give me that innocent bit. I do kicks, you platoons. We both knew a good thing when we saw it. What's the matter, Mrs. Hilliard? Did I hit a nerve?
Just a bit of advice. If you're dressing for Stephen, not that one. He doesn't like anything quite so obvious.
Thank you. But when Stephen doesn't like what I wear, I take it off.
Hello and welcome to Book versus Movie. This is a podcast where we read books that have been adapted into movies and then we try to decide which we like better, the book or the movie. I am Margot P. of coloniabook.com and this is my good friend and co-host Margot D. of Book and Fit Chick.
Hi, everyone.
It's right in the middle of March. Past the Ides and St. Patrick's Day was yesterday. But here at Book versus Movie, that means it's musicals. And not all musicals have been adapted from like a novel per se, but in musical theater, or actually in theater in general, the script is called the book. So, technically not breaking the rules, although we break the rules all the time around here. If you're new, here's the deal. We cover films that have been adapted from any literary source. We've been at this for about 10 years now. And we try to crank out a brand new episode every single week. And so that means we can't always do the Joy Luck Club. We can't do your Les Miserables, Sorry.
Dune.
We will not be doing Les Miserables in a musicals in March here at Book versus Movie. So we will consider any film that has been adapted from any literary source as long as that literary source is easily accessible. Hopefully, ideally through like a local library kind of situation. And the movie has to be streaming on a major platform. So it has to be readily available for all of us, you and the two of us, to get our eyeballs on. And if that's the case and you have something you think we should cover that we've never covered, please give us your suggestions. There's a few places where you can do that. You can interact with other listeners of this podcast and just generally have some fun talking books and movies on the internet.
Be sure to like our Facebook page. All the episodes are posted there, but we're much more interactive in our Facebook group. It's a private group. You do have to ask to join. And we do just talk about books and movies there and some pop culture, things like that. We're on Twitter, Instagram, and Threads, all at you have to spell out book versus and movies. That's a place to reach out to us. Or we have an old-timey email, bookversusmoviepodcast@gmail.com. Send us your suggestion. And if you would like some stickers, just send us your address via email and we will drop them for you in the mail.
And if you really enjoy the show and would like to help keep us in books and movies, you can also support us on Patreon.
Yes, Patreon. We put, like Margot says, we've been doing this for 10 years now. So we have about 8 years worth of shows up there on our Patreon wall. Going up there has what's gone up there recently are My Fair Lady, One Night in Miami, Cats, West Side Story, Cabaret, The Women, The Man Who Fell to Earth, and Father of the Bride are dropping soon. So we're just taking episodes from 2021 and then previous to that up on the wall. We really appreciate all of you that support us. It's we ask for a small donation if it's possible, and it just helps us get books and movies. But if money's tight or you're looking for another way to support us, just please leave us a review wherever you get your podcast. Just hit the little stars button at Apple Podcasts, or Spotify now lets people leave reviews. So if you could do that, that would be great.
Really, we really appreciate anytime you share the show or, pop in, leave us a comment, leave us a review. It means a lot to us. Margot mentioned a minute ago that we have The Women is up on Patreon now. Listen, today we're talking about a movie called The Opposite Sex. You may not have heard of it. That is because I'm just going to, spoiler alert, it stinks.
It stinks on ice. Not that we didn't enjoy it, but boy, oof.
Yeah, it's one of those. And it is a musical adaptation, kind of like last week we talked about Mean Girls, and Mean Girls was a musical adaptation of a film that was a musical adaptation of a book. In this case, we have a musical adaptation of a film that was a musical adaptation of a play. And the play is called The Women. The Women is written by a woman called Clare Luce. We'll talk about her in just a second. But if you have never seen the original movie of The Women, you will not be sorry. Watch the original. Like, if you've ever wondered, if you've ever had the thought, what's the big deal about Joan Crawford? Then you've never seen The Women. Mm-hmm. It's so good, you guys. It is so good. There's not a single man in the cast. And still, it's great. It's so ahead of its time. The play, same thing, so ahead of its time. No men in the cast. Amazing snappy dialogue. There's like I say, watch the original movie with Norma Shearer. Joan Crawford is the baddie. Rosalind Russell, who's phenomenal. And then there's an amazing, great performances on YouTube of the 90s revival. Also spectacular. Cynthia Nixon. What's your name?
Rue
Tilly.
McClanahan, Jennifer Tilly.
Yeah, it's in the baddie role. Costumes
Kirsten
by Isaac
Johnson.
Mizrahi. Oh, it's so good.
It's so funny.
So good.
It's so much fun. We posted in our Facebook group. It's pretty easy to get your hands on, but yeah, that's the thing. It's like this sparkling dialogue and these really intelligent women is just like the reason you show up for it. The politics, yeah, whatever. The sexual politics are kind of dated, but
it doesn't exactly pass the Bechdel test.
No,
it's not
but
quite, but it's the 30s. Let's calm down. Now, this movie though is much later. I don't know what our excuses are. I can only think it's we've talked about this before, the post-war turn the clock back. But we'll get to that in a minute. We need to talk about the woman who started it all. And we don't have all day. We talked about her before, but she is a big topic. We're going to talk about Clare Luce.
Yes. So she was born Anne Clare Booth, March 10th, 1903, New York City. She passed away 1987 in D.C. She was married twice, most famously to Henry Luce, who was a big time. He owned Time and Life. He created Fortune magazine. She was raised by a mother who first wanted her in show business, but she was a writer. She was a journalist. She served in the House of Representatives. She serves as an ambassador to 2 countries on behalf of America. She had affairs with people like Roald Dahl, who she basically sexually exhausted him. He begged his friends to go out with her. She almost died by arsenic poisoning because of the castle she stayed in Italy, or was it, germ warfare that she was a victim of?
Yeah, she was an ambassador to Italy at the time. She was also involved in the women's suffrage movement. I mean, this woman was all over the place. She also famously commissioned a friend who unfortunately died by suicide, and she commissioned Frida Kahlo, again, a woman artist. Mm-hmm. The woman who wrote The Women commissioned this very famous woman artist to paint a tribute to her friend. Famously, when Frida Kahlo, and it's a very famous painting, when she saw the painting that Frida Kahlo made, she hated it because what she wanted was like a loving tribute to her friend, and what she instead got was a very graphic depiction of the actual event of her friend's death. But,
right.
I mean, she just such a life of adventure. Her politics kind of they swing wildly, from very progressive to extremely conservative. Sometimes I really don't get her politics at all. And other times I'm like, yeah, you go.
For example, she was not an isolationist in 1939.
Right.
She really wanted to enter World War II because she knew how bad Hitler was, which was counter to many of her friends at the time. But then later on, she gets the Presidential Medal of Honor from Ronald Reagan. And she's, I think, the first woman House of Representatives, first to serve in her seat, but she's the first that got one from him. Like she said, ambassador to Italy. She was in an open marriage. She had lots of affairs. She had a political life. in office, out of office. She knew everybody, and she was brilliant. And this play is one of the few plays that she wrote, but it was on Broadway for 3 years and was a huge hit.
It's so good. It's so brilliant. It's such a fun script to read. It's very clever. And it's such a great example, I think, the script I'm talking about now, and the play. It's such a great example of the show don't tell kind of thing. Like the way the women, they seem very flighty and gossipy and all that, but they're actually really moving very big chess pieces around in each other's lives. Like there's some big stuff that happens. So let's just hit on the broad strokes of the plot of the women before we talk about because there's some big changes in this movie.
Yeah. So we have our protagonist is Mary, and she is married to who's married? Stephen. He's such a jerk, by the way.
He's horrible.
Horrible.
What are you doing, Mary? Just kick him to the curb.
Mary. Yeah. So Mary is married to Stephen. She thinks they're in a loving relationship. They've been together for 10 years. They have a daughter. They're rich. Like, can get $50 manicures in the 1930s.
This is another important point about the play versus the movie that we're going to talk about today. Although the women in the movie we're talking about today are affluent women, it's a different world, but we're talking about Depression. This is one of the great things about this play. We're talking about Depression era America, pre-World War, between the wars. And this is a glimpse into these are Real Housewives. This is a glimpse into the ultra mega wealthy, the swans, as we would now call them today, the mega wealthy women in a time when women were not allowed to have power, were not very educated. And so all they have to do is they go to the Elizabeth Arden spa all day and they get their nails done and they gossip. And it was a way for the general public to have a glimpse into, this gilded cage, if you will, that these women live in. And so it's a very different world than the movie that we're going to talk about today.
Which is funny because it's during, the Depression. But I mean, sometimes you like escapism too when you're going through the Depression. This ran for 3 years on Broadway. So she finds out through the gossip that her husband is seeing a sales girl named Crystal Allen. And Crystal sells perfume. Stephen goes in for their anniversary to buy perfume. He gets more than he's looking for with Crystal. He moves her into an apartment. She has an easier life.
Yeah, he fully sets her up in an apartment. And it's not like a fling. This is a long-term, like he's making plans for the long haul here.
And Mary is very loving to him and adores him and puts him first, and they have a nanny and they have a cook and they have like Margos said, it's like the gilded cage. It looks like it's great, but it's also a time where women can't get their own credit cards. You're not treated as seriously. So they do have, there's drawbacks to what they have. And it's also attached to the men that they have. And then, so she winds up with a group of women that she knows. They all wind up in Reno at the same time because there used to be the law that you had to establish residence someplace else. Reno was one of those places. So there's a couple of others. Mexico was one, I believe.
Yeah,
someplace
in order to get a
South.
quickie divorce.
Right. And so a lot of people did that. So these women are going there, and we find out that like one of the biggest gossips, she's getting dumped by her husband. There's another woman, and they're in New York, and then they go to this ranch in Reno, and then we have the Countess, which is this very extravagant woman who travels with them. It's like her fourth or fifth marriage that she's on. There's a woman that runs the place in Reno and sort of like, we would say now challenges gender norms. And
yes, indeed.
But these are, like Margot says, in the original play and in what we saw the production, which I think was like 2000, 2001, it's all women. There are no men anywhere featured. And that because this is the story. It's the focus on them. Mary and her husband split up. She's broken up about this. She comes back to New York and she realizes Crystal, complete shock, is a jerk and didn't really love her husband. So now Mary is like, I got to get him back. And so they're all conniving to help Mary win Stephen back. Even though she's all set up financially, he's like
she's
I said,
okay.
She's doing fine.
She doesn't really need him. But okay. But she wants him. C'est la vie. Yeah, so it's all a scheme to get her husband out of the clutches of Crystal and back into her arms. Why she thinks he's going to stay there, we don't address that. But it's fine, I'm sure. I'm sure it's fine.
They have a daughter that's the intermediary. Whatever you
Yes,
say
the
word.
daughter's really smart.
Yes.
She's got really great I mean, the dialogue is so good. There's also a character of her mother. And again, it's the mid-30s when this play comes out. And so, the mother's advice is just pretend like you never heard about this affair, just play along. You've got him for the long haul, basically.
He doesn't love her.
Yeah. And Mary is like, no, why would I live with, this is clearly over. Like, I've been living a lie. And somehow, I don't know how it is that she comes around to the fact that she feels like she's not living a lie, or she wouldn't be living a lie anymore, or that he somehow has changed. I don't know.
The daughter basically, she of course doesn't get along with Crystal. She's nice to her as she could possibly be. She's like 10 years old. I mean, you're not going to like your dad's new wife. But Crystal's, a schemer. Crystal's got her own guys on the horn that she's talking to when she's not talking to her husband. And so the daughter is sort of sowing the seeds of like, I don't think dad really likes Crystal anymore. He realizes he made a big mistake, and you're so classy, and you guys had something so special. And kind of like, and that's what gives her the idea of like, okay, I'm going to put on my best gown and we're going to go to this big event and we're going to out Crystal for being a jerk. And then he's going to be like, my wife, my real wife, come back to me.
Exactly.
Jungle Red.
Jungle Red. And there's this character, who we never meet, I don't think, Buck, who is, he's the cowboy that the Countess has, now in this, again, in the original version, the Countess has picked up Buck as her, I forget, fifth husband. And we learn that after Crystal has married Stephen, she's having an affair with Buck, the cowboy. And so all the women get together and they and there's a gossip columnist that buzzes around these society ladies, and they manage to, in front of the gossip columnist, out Crystal for cheating, and they get, everybody gets their comeuppance except for Stephen somehow,
right?
The guy who actually did anybody any real harm. Okay. Anyway, but that was the time. That was the time. And Mary is a smarter, more grounded person, we can say. She's going into it, I think, with open eyes, it feels like. Anyway, that's the end, is they're reunited. Crystal, the baddie, and the gossipy friend, what's her name? Rosalind Russell? Sylvia, thank you. She gets her comeuppance. A delight. It is so funny. And so, these women are so outrageous. They have no real actual problems. And so what do? They scheme and cheat on each other and lie and gossip. And that's what happens. It's, like I said, if you've never seen it, just you will love it. I don't know you. I don't know who you are. I don't know your taste. But I know that you will love the women. And then you may also even love the opposite sex, but not because it's good.
No. Mary believes in romantic love. That's where she is. And I think, she feels like he's going to break up with Crystal over this, right? He may just find someone else to get married to, and that would kill her. So
we have no reason to think he's not going to do this again.
Right.
Zero reason. He has shown really zero growth. But okay, Mary.
Look, it's what Mary wants. That's the story. There's also talks about, once it gets to gender norms, we have a writer that's very never married and has a lot of quips about women versus females, which is like a conversation we hear nowadays, and the schemingness of women and can you trust one or not? And it's all just fun. It's just good, silly, harmless fun. And I'm sure it was so much fun to watch live. I mean, I did see the version with Cynthia Nixon. It was fantastic.
It's not only witty and full of one-liners and zingers that are so funny, so fresh. But there's also a great deal of physical comedy, we forgot to say. It is a very physical play. There is a lot of physical falls and trips and fights, and it's fantastic.
In the great performances we were just talking about, and once again, you can get it on YouTube, it's Jennifer Coolidge is like the much pregnant
I forgot about Jennifer Coolidge.
And it's just
It's such a great
wonderful.
cast.
Yeah. And the Isaac Mizrahi costumes are just phenomenal. I think he won the Tony Award for that.
They're gorgeous. They're
It's fun.
so pretty. Yeah.
So someone decided in the mid 50s, why don't we make a musical of this?
Okay. So then we have a whole other world war, right?
Mm-hmm.
And now it's no longer the Depression. Now we are in the post-war boom. So a very different landscape. And also women who were gaining more and more agency during the war, as we discussed before, and there's several things that we've talked about. There's like a record scratch. And we turn the clock back. And I'm like, no, miss. No, you're not going to be running that office. No, you're not going to be the forewoman of that factory. No, you get to go home now. Go do up your hair and go home and have kids. And no, you don't need to go to college. You need home ec. Totally different point in the evolution of feminism, let's say. Very much this attempt to get women, back into the home, back into the kitchen, back into the, to an even greater degree than what we saw in the original The Women, than what was going on in the 1930s, we could argue. So very, very, very different landscape.
Do we play the trailer?
Yeah. Just fair warning, it's weird.
It's long, too.
Why do men who should know better gape at a well-filled sweater? What's there about it that keeps them craning their necks? The answer is the opposite sex.
Hello, darling. I'm in the tub, shriveled to a peanut, waiting for you to call.
In the tub? It's too bad there isn't a television attachment on this phone.
Look, if I can get out a little later on, you take up your spurs and meet me at the car.
Now, hold it, honey. Can I call you back? I've got some people here I want to talk to. Okay? Howdy, folks. I'm here to give you the bare facts about the opposite sex. I'm Buck Winston when I play in this picture. In person, I'm Jeff Richards, the lucky guy MGM cast opposite all the feminine beauty in the opposite sex. Oh, what women. For instance, there's June Allyson as Kay. Kay had been a famous singer.
On the man with the two front names, Harry, James, the young man with a horse,
And Sheridan as Amanda has her own ideas about the opposite sex.
Females, the lost sex, substituting fashion for passion and the analyst couch for the double bed. Oh.
Dolores Gray is Sylvia, a good listener when someone's dishing the dirt.
Well, you can't blame him, really. You should see this Crystal Allen.
Yes, you really should see Crystal Allen, played by seductive, sultry Joan Collins.
Don't give me that innocent bit. I do kicks, you plug tunes.
But we both knew a good thing when we saw it.
What's the matter, Mrs. Hilliard? Did I hit a nerve?
This is Gloria, ready to love, honor, and betray. It's luscious Ann Miller. And here are those riotous four-time losers in the Reno Handicap, Agnes Moorehead and Charlotte Greenwood. The opposite sex is spiced with eye-filling production treats, set to the beat of hit tunes and toe-tapping rhythms.
No, baby, no.
And, backed by Art Mooney's band, here's yours truly, old Buck Winston and his guitar.
Rock with the rock and roll tumble. They all rock with the rock and roll tumble. They all rock with the rock and roll tumble. That rock and roll tumbleweed.
opposite sex. Mighty popular idea, reckon. One is here to stay.
What is this movie?
Okay.
What is this movie?
I texted you the first time I watched it this week,
What?
and I said it's kind of like Orange is the New Black meets RuPaul's Drag Race. That's when they're in
With less than
Nevada.
a plot.
Yes, because it's very camp. I mean, it's
super camp.
It's super campy. Let me see. We have June Allison as Kay Hilliard. We renamed some people.
I don't know why, but all right. Okay.
Joan Collins, by the way, Crystal Allen, great.
Okay. She's really good. She's very well cast in this, and she's doing a great job.
Yeah.
No notes.
No
Miss
notes.
Collins.
No notes. And I love it that her name is Crystal Allen because she fights Crystal Carrington in the 80s. And in this movie, she fights. Ann Sheridan is Amanda Penrose. Ann Miller, you have Ann Miller in a musical, and you don't ask her to sing or dance.
No.
One of the greatest dancers, by the way, of all time.
Ever.
Always is on top 10
She couldn't
lists.
be Kay's. Well, we'll talk about the plot, but yeah. What?
Leslie Neal.
So if you're keeping score and you're a fan of the original movie, Ann Miller is playing the Paulette Goddard role.
Leslie Nielsen as Stephen. We finally get to see Stephen.
Yeah, he's doing a pretty good job.
He's fine. I forget how handsome he was.
He really was.
Jeff Richards as Buck Winston. He's hot.
He does a good job. Yep.
Agnes Moorehead as the Countess. That's some good casting.
Yes. Again, no notes.
No notes there. Charlotte Greenwood as Lucy, Joan Blondell, who I just adore, Edith Potter.
I love Joan Blondell. We don't get enough of her. I love her.
And she was Dick Powell's second wife. Mm-hmm. And I think June Allison was the third wife. So they had like a little bit of a...
He is the one... He was in a lot of things, but he was sometimes cast as a tough guy. He's the first person ever to play Philip Marlowe, the detective Philip Marlowe, in 1944 Murder My Sweet.
Oh, okay.
But he's in a lot of I won't call them B movies because that's not that far. But he does comedy, he does drama, he plays tough guy, he plays leading man. He's just he does a lot of things. So so he was married to Joan Blondell, who he divorced in 1944, and then married June Allison in 1945. So
overlap.
There's a little overlap there.
Yeah, but they apparently they got along fine. They did their jobs. Sam Levine is Mike Pearl. Carolyn Jones is great as the roommate.
She's always.
Always a beautiful.
She's always great.
And then we have some musical performances. We have Jim Backus. For some reason,
in this crazy, what is this number? Why? Okay,
Dick Shawn.
Okay,
we have
to. We'll just put a pin in Jim Backus for a second.
Yeah.
We've got Dick Shawn. He's the one in the number with Jim Backus. It's a big cast. Lots of men. Lots and lots of men.
I just saw they were supposed to have Grace Kelly play the June Allison role.
She really dodged one there, I think.
I think so too. It's the same beats, but Mary this time is someone who she's a writer and a singer and a producer on TV, and her husband's in the theater.
No, her husband is a producer. Her husband's a big shot Broadway producer, and Amanda is the writer. That's what's your name? Ann Sheridan. So Kay.
I keep saying Mary. It's Kay. Sorry, y'all.
It's Kay. Yeah. We don't know why her name is Kay. But Kay was a very, very famous singer who then married the producer and settled down and became the nice little housewife. So she has showbiz past, right? And so all their friends are showbiz Broadway friends. So which is famous and affluent, but it's not on the level of that in the women, right? That's not that echelon. Mm-hmm. It could have been, but it's not. So, and it's a musical
Ish. I mean,
it's billed as a musical, but it's not like first of all, okay, there's not a single song. There's not one song in the whole movie that advances the story one freaking comma. Not an iota. What are they doing?
there's
and it's not like the play is going and they break into song. There are songs because they're showbiz people. So they're like show songs. Like they walk into his Stephen's play that he's producing, which Crystal is in. This crazy number about bananas. I want to be a bananaire. and Joan Collins and everybody's in brown face for some reason.
That was very alarming. Yeah.
What are we doing?
What are we doing? And then Kay and her husband have a party at their place, and it's her birthday or their anniversary, but somebody gives them a gift, and the gift is her record from 10 years ago. Like they're going to re-release her.
Your gift is this.
So then they play her record, and she's just sitting there like, oh, I used to do this for a living, and now I'm just sitting around this house. And I'm sorry, June Allyson, this was not a great performance. This is...
What? It is not good. It is not good.
She's wearing her hair.
At some point... Okay.
She has such
that's her.
That's her.
That's her with that hairstyle. That's her like signature hairstyle with the weird childish bob with the bangs. If you look at remember the Depends commercials, she's got the same hairstyle. It's the same hairstyle.
But it's like Kristen Wiig when she would do those on Saturday Night Live when she had the hooks for the hands and that's yes. That's what she looks like, and it's distracting.
It is.
It makes her look really older.
Weird, you guys.
It makes her look plain.
Same. Agree. She's very dowdy looking, which in fairness, in the original, the women, Norma Shearer's Mary is a very kind of dowdy-ish, sort of a matronly kind of a housewifey sort of a lady. Okay. But later on, and oh my gosh, it takes forever for the plot to move along in this movie. I don't understand why it feels so very slow, but it really does. Later on, after she leaves Stephen, she decides, because of course, she's a woman alone and she has to make money. So she goes back to show business. And they have her singing this very it's meant to be sultry, sexy. She's wearing like the equivalent of a flannel, completely buttoned up to the neck nightgown with full puffy sleeves.
Peter Pan collar.
Peter Pan collar.
No sex appeal.
What are you doing?
You promised me the world tomorrow. Well, frankly, I am not impressed. Tomorrow can take care of tomorrow. For tonight, may I suggest? I want you to cling to
whatsoever.
What is this?
And she has all these cute boys with their basses, that they're flinging around, and she's like singing, and I think she's dubbing some of these songs.
Some of the songs, at least one of the songs, is dubbed with a completely different person's voice. Doesn't sound remotely like June Allyson, who can sing. Why? It's so crazy. This movie is so confusing to me. I don't understand the choices. So I get that. It's not her best. And I don't know why. I don't know why did we make these choices? Is it because I would, when I was watching it, I thought, because I've seen clips of this. When we did the women originally, I watched some scenes of this at that time. And so I knew that at the end for the finale, when she shows up at the club, she's wearing a very sexy, like that's a beautiful ensemble that she has on. And I'm thinking like, is it a dowdy outfit? This show tune that she's doing, is it meant to be like really dowdy so that then when we see her, it's like a big reveal? But literally in the very next scene after the show tune that we're talking about, she's just hanging out at home with her girlfriends. She's wearing such a better outfit than she's wearing in that show number. What is going on?
And then there's a whole thing where she takes over the production of a TV show, and she's like, "We can't get Dinah Shore, so let's get Dick Shawn."
She
DS,
is in
I guess.
charge. Yeah, because she's and I'm trying to remember if there's something like this in the original play. I don't know if there is or not, but all of these showbiz ladies are involved in a showbiz charity, and they have a big charity talent show, something or other that Mary is, no, sorry, Kay is producing. She's in charge of it. And so it's an added like plot line that as these women are scheming and divorcing and jumping into bed and all this cat fighting, they are also putting on a show.
And it's Dick Shawn who's with his psychiatrist and Jim Backus.
So weird.
And then he's like, all I love is girls, 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 girls. It's like over and over again. It's like he doth protest too much, first of all, if you have to like establish it that much. Okay.
Got it, Tom Cruise jumping down on the sofa. It was very that.
It's bizarre. But she does meet Joan Crawford, and then she slaps her, it's like, hey, you stealing my man. And apparently Joan Collins thought that she was not going to actually land her. And June Allyson thought that Joan Crawford was going to tilt her head back more. So she actually slapped her across the face. The most exciting thing that happens. But, moving it along, they do eventually, she's like, well, I got to break up with you. He has a whole thing where he meets the girl. He has his daughter meet his mistress at the park. And has it gets a lolly with her, and they're like, I mean, just he's why? There's like no chemistry between them at all. He's trying to make it easy on the kid by like I'm introducing my new girlfriend while your mom's in the Bahamas or wherever, Bermuda, wherever she went off to. But mom comes back and finds out that her daughter's already met the mistress and that he's putting her up in a room. There's the whole they go to Reno and they're all there. And actually, the Reno stuff is pretty fun. I would say that's the best part of the movie is the Reno stuff. Yeah. They have when all the men are gone. When all the men are gone, and they have these women just trading quips. And like I said, the gender norms are all over the place. And there's a great scene where they have a big fight that's like really exciting.
It's Winchell. Gloria, Copacabana doll is in the process of being renovated. 3 guesses, Mrs. Howard Fowler, as to whom she's going to marry. Gloria! A small world, isn't it? Why, you dirty, double-dealing
Now,
little...
Sylvia, you don't love Howard.
That has nothing to do with it. Oh, why don't we just forget it and go to bed?
Here, now. Sylvia, get hold of yourself.
Kay, let go of... Ow! Sherry, don't lose your temper. I'm sorry, Countess. She hit me first, and I'm going to let her have it. Look out, Kay. Why, you little... Oh! Ow! Oh! Help! Lucy! Help! Oh, Lucy! Lucy! Come on! Listen, we gotta stop them! You just... do something! I don't... Oh! Oh! You can't do this! Oh, you can't! Let me off me! Okay, you just get out of here! Get out of here!
And then they leave. And they come back to New York. And we're supposed to really root for Kay to get this guy back. And I think it's the worst idea. It's a terrible idea. It's an even worse idea in 1956 than it was in 1936. Who is this guy? Who did you marry? What are you doing? Stop.
You clearly have a career of your own. You have friends. What are you doing? There are so many other men in 1956. It's just a real head scratcher. I'm trying to see who was it that did the music and lyrics. It's like Sammy Kahn. And,
yes.
I mean, it's not nobody, but like, where were y'all? Did you phone it in? And the one thing I will say is, music by Sammy Kahn, George Fried. I mean, okay, for those of you who don't know, high hopes he's got, and Call Me Irresponsible, I Fall in Love Too Easily, let's see, Love is the Tender Trap, Pocket Full of, Ain't That a Kick in the Head? I love that song. Girls. What? Like, dude, it's boggling. The one thing though I think that is good in terms of like the quote unquote musical overlay of this, I think the choreography actually is very good in the numbers, and that's by Robert Sidney. Okay, so Robert Sidney. He was really good at doing choreography for actors who were graceful, but maybe not necessarily professional dancers. He lived to be 98.
Oh, wow.
And he worked on, let's see, Where the Boys Are, The Singing Nun.
Oh, my God.
And Valley of the Dolls.
That was some great choreography in Valley of the Dolls.
Good,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
I think he does a good job because, again, Joan Collins is graceful, but she's not a dancer. What's your name?
June Allyson.
June Allyson. Hi, I'm June Allyson for Depends.
Yes.
She can move, but she's not nobody goes dancer, June Allyson. But he does a super good job. Why did we not break the Ann Miller glass? Don't know, but
it's right from the start.
Weird.
It's just it's totally is going in a direction that it's doing this whole like optimistic overlay when it's supposed to be more biting and more cynical, really. And
definitely, yeah.
And it's not
in the most fun, catty way.
Yeah. It's supposed. Yeah. The Clare Booth Luce lines are why you turn up for it. That's why people want to remake it, because it's funny. And this is like, I didn't laugh at all.
Why do men go into diamond mines, seeking stones as bright as stars that glitter?
Why do little silkworms go about their business?
To make my lady's limbs just shimmer. Why do those talented Parisian gents rack their brains concocting fragrance scents?
Except when they were in Reno, and then I did laugh because
there's some funny bits in Reno.
Top.
What Ann Miller's great. I mean, we're just mad that they don't let her sing or dance, but she's really good in this. I think she's very funny. She really brings a lot. Agnes Moorehead, of course. And I think you just don't get that, like, Schadenfreude is too far, but you don't get that like guilty Real Housewives kind of thrill with this that you get with the original.
Right.
There's just not that element of like, look at these rich bees up in here, like thinking everybody wants to be them when their lives are a mess. It's not there. You don't have that at all in this version. It's just all over the place. And the little girl, we forgot to talk about the little girl. What's your name?
What is her name?
Debbie. She plays Debbie.
Debbie.
Here, Sandy Desher.
Yes.
who was a very famous child actor. She was in a lot of things. But the one I always remember her from is another like great eye candy movie, but like the writing is so terrible. The Last Time I Saw Paris
I've
with
never
Elizabeth
seen that.
Taylor and Van Johnson, who are supposed to be in love somehow. Oh, it should have been so good, and it's not. But the costumes and the sets and all of that are gorgeous. And she plays their daughter. It's supposed to be based on F. Scott Fitzgerald. It's one of the F. Scott Fitzgeralds. Not Tender is the Night. Anyway, he's supposed to be based on F. Scott Fitzgerald, Van Johnson's character, and it's nah. But it's still a fun movie. Elizabeth Taylor's costumes in that movie are to die for, and they are the same costumer who did this movie, Helen Rose. And I will say that those are my two favorite things about this movie. Is the choreography I think is excellent, and the costumes I have no notes.
Except for June Allyson. Her costume.
Except for like what is going on
that
there?
baby blue outfit was just,
I don't get it. What is the baby blue outfit?
That was just, and I forgot to mention on Patreon, you can sign up for free because we do have some free episodes there, but I put the clips from the movies because sometimes they don't let me post them on TikTok or Instagram. Mm-hmm. So if you sign up there, you could see what we're talking about because we put a few clips there. And
it's just weird. If it were a different kind of number, but it's a very sultry, sexy number.
Which would be perfect for Ann Miller.
You see her hands and her face. You don't see her neck, her ankles. It's not her fault. Like, she didn't say, dub me for this number, unless she chose that outfit. But in terms of, like, it's really the directing in the script, It's not, I'm not blaming June Allyson. I think I don't know who, like, if poor Grace Kelly, if she had been roped into that,
yeah,
who knows what they would have done with her. But it's not good.
It's pretty bad.
I have many thoughts about everything except the costumes. Wait, what were my things for no notes? The costumes, the choreography, Agnes Moorehead, and
Joan Blondell.
And Joan Blondell.
And Ann Sheridan is good.
Actually, Ann Sheridan, you're right. Ann Sheridan does a very good job. Ann Sheridan in the original, we talked about how Mary has her mother, and her mother is supposed to be the quote unquote voice of reason, who's lived beyond all this catty drama. Nevertheless, she gives Mary the advice to ignore the affair and stick with her husband. And so that role, for some reason, I don't know why Mary can't have a mom in this version, but that role is played by Ann Sheridan, who's playing like a slightly older, although she's supposed to be older, although they're probably the same age, than June Allyson, but definitely wiser. And she's a writer, and she's the one who's giving advice and observing about the women and everything. And she does a very good job of it, I think. I wish she had more to do.
Yeah. Yeah. Those are my notes. I mean, it didn't do well at the box office. It didn't do very well.
No, it famously tanked.
Yeah. Yeah. And so that they stopped like trying to remake this movie. I know there's one with Meg Ryan and a bunch of other women.
Oh, it's also so bad.
Yeah.
It's not good at all. I don't know. That one has even less of an excuse as far as I'm concerned. The Broadway one, though. The Broadway one is so good. And the original, I mean, if you've never seen it, it's so ahead of its time. And it's just, it just sparkles. It's so good. This does not.
No, you can avoid this.
The music is, all I remember is girls, 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 girls. And
I like girls. I like girls. I only think about girls, girls, girls. Like,
okay.
Dude, okay. That's
we get it.
Try hard.
There's a number that June Allyson sings with Harry James, who's in this movie for some reason. And it's a tune. It's not even a new tune. It's a tune that she sang in another movie like 10 years before. It's just, I don't who okayed this? Who signed off on this?
MGM.
Okay.
Yeah. All right, that's how we feel. We do have an exciting choice for next week, which we think we're going to enjoy much more.
I'm looking forward to it.
We're going to be talking about Matilda. So
yeah, starring the lover of Clare Booth Luce. Featuring the lover of Clare Booth Luce, our author today. Roald Dahl is the author of Matilda. We talked about the phenomenally good
that movie
with Danny DeVito and Rhea Perlman and Mara Wilson.
Yes.
Mara Wilson. Yeah. That's a great movie. So I'm very much looking forward to this. And I've heard good things about the musical, so I'm expecting good things.
Great things about the musical, and it's streaming on Netflix right now. So that's what we're going to be doing next. But please, once again, send us your suggestions. We're thinking of doing thrillers in May, mysteries in May. So keep those ideas coming to us. All those places I mentioned at the top of the show. Our email, once again, is bookversusmoviepodcast, spelled it all out, @gmail.com. And Margot, where can they find you?
You can find me online at coloniabook.com, and all my social media callouts are at She's Nacho Mama. And where can they find you?
You can find me at brooklynfitchick.com. I'm at Brooklyn Margot on Twitter. On Instagram and Threads, I'm at Brooklyn Fitchick, and I'm at Brooklyn Margot on the TikTok, where I do have a few clips from this movie. Sorry if it's all confusing. It's either Brooklyn Margot or Brooklyn Fitchick, wherever you look for things. Okay, everyone, we'll be back soon with a new episode. Thank you so much for listening to the Book versus Movie podcast. We're a part of the Frolic Podcast Network. You could find more podcasts you will love at frolic.media/podcasts. You could find us on Twitter, Threads, Blue Sky, and Instagram at Book versus a Movie. Just spelled it all out. We have a Patreon page. Type in their Book vs. Movie podcast, where you can find 8 years worth of shows. You can follow Margot D on social media at Brooklyn Margot and also Brooklyn Fitchick. You can find Margot P at She's Nacho Mama. Thank you again for listening, and please be sure to send along your suggestions for the show. Remember, the book needs to be easy to get your hands on, and the movie has to be streaming on a major platform. We will be back soon with a new